The Swan Dowager is about to hold her annual spring party on her estate grounds, and those lovable rapscallions, Hare, Toad, and Badger, have somehow finagled invitations. Whimsical hijinks are bound to ensue with that trio attending. Yet, what will those whimsical hijinks be? Well, that's going to be up to you and your friends, because you'll be taking on the roles of Hare, Toad, and Badger. At least that's the premise of the RiverBank role-playing game from Kobold Press. And I'll share my review right after this. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang channel. Thanks for joining me once again. Today, I'll be sharing my review of the RiverBank role-playing game from Kobold Press. Written by Kij Johnson, this 192-page hardcover is available now. Carries an MSRP of $49.99. If you want to grab just the PDF, you can do so over at DriveThruRPG for $29.99. Although, as I record this and for the next handful of days, the GM's Day sale is going on over at DriveThruRPG. So this is priced at $22.49 for the PDF. Did want to mention that. Having said all that, let's swing on over to the other camera, because here I've got RiverBank from Kobold Press. Couple of things to mention before we get stuck in. First of all, my friends over at Kobold Press were kind enough to provide me with this review copy, but neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the Gaming Gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share this review with you. It's important you know that. We're also not going to look at each and every page of the book, but I do want to give you a really good feel for what you're going to find inside. First thing we'll do is take a peek at the credits page. A lot of folks worked very hard to bring this to life. Let's give credit where credit is due. If you're not familiar with RiverBank, it is a role-playing game featuring anthropomorphic animals. It is set in the English countryside, pretty much during the turn of the 20th century, the first decade of the 20th century or so. Of course, you can change the setting if you'd like, but that's the default here. Now, I do want to point out this has anthropomorphic animals, but these are not going to be those sorts of animals you would find in, say, the Redwall series of books or the Mouse Guard comic books. And that's because RiverBank is a cozy role-playing game. So the sorts of adventures that the player characters go on in RiverBank are more along the lines of slice of life tales. And this is a humorous role-playing game. So it is designed to be very light, and it takes a lot of inspiration from, obviously enough, The Wind in the Willows, but also the PG Woodhouse stories, especially the Jeeves and Wooster tales. So if you are a real big fan of that, then this is certainly going to be a role-playing game for you. Now, this is also, like I said, a humorous game, so you're going to see a lot of comedy of errors and misunderstandings. Those are the kind of situations that will lead to the hijinks or haphazardry, I guess we will say, because that is a term that is used in RiverBank. It is not going to be some big epic adventure. Later in the book, we do have some example situations. We also have an example year-long campaign, which is pretty cool as well. So the first half of the book is going to be devoted to creating your player characters as well as the rules of the game. So you're going to have your animal. So you're going to choose an animal, and there are a lot of them in this core book, but also keep in mind, you're probably going to have some players who are going to play as animals that are not in here. So work with them to create an archetype that they can play with. You're going to find that you've got a few different abilities as well as peculiarities. You've got knacks. So I'll explain what these are. So as far as our stats, our attributes, the abilities, we have charm, we have intrepidity, and then we also have pother and sense. So charm, pretty self-explanatory. It's how well liked you are. It's how well you get what you're looking to get simply because of your personality and how well the other animals and humans, talk about that in a minute, like you. Then we also have sense, which is not necessarily your intellect. It's more how you process information, as well as kind of common sense. We also have pother. Pother is how much your character is in the mix of everything. It's not necessarily how often things revolve around that character, but more like how often is that character kind of in the middle of things? Maybe not necessarily the focus of it. And then we have the intrepidity. Say that 5 times fast. And that is pretty much how bold you are, your gumption, how steadfast the character is. We'll also have peculiarities. So each of the animals will have a list of peculiarities, which are things that innately make those characters unique. So we have the peculiarities from the animal type. So as an example, if you were playing as a bird who can fly, one of your peculiarities is going to be that you have wings and you can fly. So we've got those. We also have general peculiarities that the players can choose. And those would be other things that are going to make them unique. And there's a wide range of peculiarities. Things like, poorish. So they come across as maybe not being as well off as other animals. So we've got that. We also have knacks. So these are things that the character is good at. So we're going to have a variety of different knacks. Each of the players get to choose 4 of those. They also get to choose 3 peculiarities for their character. I'll mention, I was very surprised that this was not as rules light as I was expecting, especially considering what the setting is and what I thought would be the target audience for this game. I thought this would be geared more towards, families and introducing younger players to role-playing games. That's not really who the audience is. Honestly, once I have read this, I came to that realization. I'll talk about that a bit more when I get into my final thoughts as well as my review score. So you're going to have a numerical value for those 4 stats, those 4 abilities, and you will have other things which will modify that. So what we have as far as action resolution is deeds. So your game master is going to, first of all, figure out, is the deed something that just is one character does it to accomplish it, or is it a group? They're also going to have to figure out, okay, so what is the complexity of this? Now, you are going to utilize regular polyhedral dice in RiverBank. To resolve deeds, you're going to roll a 6-sided die. And then you're going to adjust that with whatever modifiers you have. And you could have positive or negative modifiers all applying. So you have to bring them all into play. So you're going to take your 6-sided die, give you a great example. In easy deed, the default is a 5 on a 6-sided die, 5 or higher. And then, of course, you're going to have your modifiers. But other things can also change that target number. So we also have, what sort of a deed is it? Is it having to do with your braininess? Is it your clever pause? Is it sway, which has to do with what sort of influence you have upon the riverbank and its occupants? All that stuff comes into play. Now, it's not rules heavy by any stretch, But like I said, a bit more going on mechanically than I thought we would see in this role-playing game. I should also mention, I'm not going to get into every tiny aspect of the mechanics of RiverBank. Just want to let you know that there is more complexity to this than I would have thought. This is not a rules light role-playing game. There is going to be math involved. And we're not talking Pathfinder math, but you are going to have math involved. And you also have other things that are taking place too. So we have the animality and poetry right here. So that is a range from -8 to +8. And what you're looking to do as a player is keep your character right in the middle, because it's a balance of how much like a wild animal are they? How much like a civilized human being are they? And you never want them to be at either end of the spectrum, because that's going to essentially take your character out of the action for a short period of time. We also have the haphazardly timer. It's about every 30 minutes or so, it goes off. And what that allows you to do is to kind of reset the characters. So you have knacks that you have limited use of. So it resets the knacks, things like that. We have a downtime deck of cards. We have a haphazardly deck of cards. Like I said, a lot of things going on. We have the animality poetry dice. So they are supposed to be 12-sided dice. My assumption is you can buy them from Kobold Press, and their faces are 0 to 3. Now, of course, if you don't have those, just use 4-sided dice and the 4 becomes a 0. Easy enough. But what happens is the animality poetry is used when you fail at a deed. So you can spend AP points essentially to succeed. So you only use AP points to get to the number you need to succeed. So let's say it was 6 and you rolled a 5. Okay, so you just need to spend 1 AP point. But for every AP point you spend, you're going to roll the AP die, and then you're going to move on that scale. So you're either going to move towards animality or you're going to move towards poetry, depending on what it was you were trying to do. Like I said, there are some complexities here that most people will not expect. Now, that does not make this for a bad game. No, not at all. I'll be very honest, though. This is not the sort of game that I would game master, just because I wouldn't be good at it. For one, I don't have the sort of familiarity with the sorts of stories that this draws inspiration from, because I'm an American mainly, right? I mean, I watch my PBS. I've seen some Chiefs and Wooster stories with Stephen Fry and Hugh Laurie, but still, I mean, I don't know a ton of P.G. Wodehouse stories. But having said that, once again, if you're a fan of those kind of stories, you're going to actually dig this a lot. I just don't see myself being able to pull this off. So, like I said, the first half is about how to play the game, creating your characters. Then we will get into the setting, get into NPCs. We'll get into the riverbank and its environs. It's important to keep in mind. So we have anthropomorphic animals. Those are considered animals with a capital A in RiverBank. We also have humans. And the capital A animals interact with the humans peacefully. They do it all the time. They coexist. And then we have animals with a small a. And those animals would be the sorts of animals that we encounter in our world. So they're just simply animals. So keep in mind, your capital A animals could be sitting down to have breakfast of ham, eggs, and kippers, which are products of small a animals. So I thought that was an interesting wrinkle. We also get a map of the riverbank and its environs. cool little map there. Then we'll get into our Game Master section. We'll get some examples of situations because this is a situation-driven game. So it's a scene-based game, except here we call them situations. There is a flow to those situations as well. We have an example campaign that I thought was kind of cool. It's a year of game time. So we have different situations based on that. I thought that was pretty nice. We will get our different decks of cards. So we have the between times cards. These are the downtime cards. So between situations, what's going on. These decks are also available from Kobold Press. We have the haphazardry deck. As I mentioned before, there's a haphazardry timer. And depending on how heavily into role-playing your players are, you'll have a longer period. So if you have a group of players who they're just, they're into doing stuff. They don't tend to delve into a lot of role-playing. You're going to set that timer for shorter periods of time. Whereas if you have characters who like to immerse themselves in the role-playing aspect of a story, then you're probably going to set it to be about 30 minutes. So we've got that. We've got our reference sheets, player reference sheets. So this is for Game Master here. Now we got our character sheets, which I just passed by right there. And that is a peek inside RiverBank from Kobold Press. Let's swing on over to the other camera so I can share some final thoughts as well as my review score. As far as the production quality, it's what we expect from Kobold Press. Very, very well done. In fact, I have to say that I think the paper stock felt a little bit thicker and a little more matte as far as the finish than we're used to seeing from Kobold Press. So that was cool. Now, might be my imagination, but it seemed that way to me. The artwork throughout, really well done. I think it does an excellent job of bringing the setting to life also. So kudos there, and major kudos as well to Kish Johnson, because this doesn't read like your typical game book. It was a fun read. I enjoyed reading it. I really, really did. Now, I also want to point out that I would be a terrible game master for RiverBank. I can't see myself running this. And I'm not saying that it's because of the game. It's mainly because of me. I understand what my strengths are. I understand what my weaknesses are. And this kind of plays more into my weaknesses at the game table than my strengths. Also, being someone who's familiar with the PG Woodhouse stories, having seen some PBS episodes with Jeeves and Wooster, with Stephen Fry and Hugh Laurie, I have a familiarity with it, but I don't have a connection with it. And I think to really pull off RiverBank and to get the most bang for the buck for not only the players, but the game master as well, I think you need to have that sort of connection to those sorts of stories. Just my thoughts as far as that. Also surprised mechanically that this is not a far more rules light role-playing game. I would have thought the target audience would have been older kids, maybe parents introducing them to role-playing games. That is not the target audience as I see it. Target audience for this is going to be adults. There are a lot of moving parts to the mechanics. I'm not saying that they're difficult to figure out at all, but there is a lot going on. There's math involved. Granted, it's not Pathfinder math, but it's not far from Pathfinder math, to be very, very honest. I got to say, as far as the Game Master facing material, really well done there. The setting itself, very cool. This is a really cool role-playing game that I just don't have a connection with. So I have to reflect that with my review score, because the reality is my reviews are based upon my thoughts about a game. And the main thing I always think is, would I run this? would I play this? As I already pointed out, I would not run RiverBank. It's me, not you, right? Is kind of how I'm looking at it. I think I would have a good time playing in a RiverBank campaign or a few sessions, what have you. So on a scale of 0 to 10, I give RiverBank from Kobold Press a 7 out of 10. Depending on your connection to the PG Woodhouse stories, Wind in the Willows, and such, you're probably going to add at least a point, maybe even 2 or more to that review score. Just for myself, I think this is really nicely done. It's just not a game which is for me. I'm just being honest. All right. That is it for this time out. If you like the Gaming Gang and would like to support the outlet, you can do so in a few ways. First, by utilizing our affiliate links to the One Bookshelf sites, such as DriveThruRPG. To do so, simply visit thegaminggang.com, click on one of our banners. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, get 5% of that sale. Now, those commissions really do add up, help keep thegaminggang.com around. You can also make a one-time donation by way of PayPal and become a member of our Patreon. You'll find links to all that in the show notes. Also in the show notes, you're going to find an invite link to our Discord server. Absolutely free to sign up. So be sure to hang with the gang over on Discord. If you like the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell, because it'll not only let you know when I share videos such as this review, it'll also inform you when my live stream, the Gaming Gang Dispatch, airs Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings right here on YouTube at 7 p.m. Central. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Thank you very much for watching. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. Until I see you next time, certainly hope all of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.